Hi everyone, welcome back to the Velvet Lounge Life. Yes, another cooking session. Today we are going to talk about one of my favorite secret ingredients for salads. I also use this as a dip on top of rice in pastas. And yes, this is a vegan and or vegetarian recipe, but you can use it on any type of poultry to give it that extra kick and funk, especially if you roasted it, barbecued it, or poached it. This is a great complement to chicken or poultry. So poultry meaning duck, pheasant, yes folks, the gamut there. So without further ado, let's get into this. So as you guys know, with any of my recipes, I always let you know what good substitutes are out there for some of the ingredients. But most of these ingredients you will probably have in your pantries. So, don't become like wild about it. If you don't have something, like I said, there's definite substitutes for this. Obviously, as with any of my recipes, make them to your taste buds' favorite yumminess. So if you don't like something, like let's say that you're on a no sodium, low sodium diet, do not use the salt. It's that easy. So without further ado, let's get a picture of the star. The star of the show is this. This is what we call our delicious Black Magic Tahini food and salad dressing sauce. This, like I said, is so good. You just have to shake it up before you use it and pour away. So I make it by, I'm not sure what size these jars are because you guys know, if you watch my pickling videos, I recycle these jars, but I make them by like the jar full like this. They last in your refrigerator, so yes, it must be refrigerated, and it'll last for up to like 3 weeks, but truly in my household, like a jar that size, it's lucky if it lasts a week, because it's sort of like people who like hot sauce on their food. This is one of those like what we call toppings or toppers, where you could just, pour a little drizzle, get that big hit of flavor, and it complements so many things. So one of the things that you definitely have as a star of your show, black sesame. So black sesame must be toasted, just like if you use the white sesame. So yes, you can use white sesame as a substitute. However, you always have to remember when your food has color in it, it is healthier. So, using a white or beige colored food is fine, but you're not getting the same amount of vitamins, iron, nutrients, etc. from that food item as you would if it had actual color. That is why we call this Black Magic Tahini salad and food sauce and dressing. So in my bowl, and I actually pre-toasted these. To toast them, you simply put them in a pan or a very wide pot if you want to, and you will toast them until you can start smelling the sesame and the cashew. And when you can smell it, you then should be hearing little teeny tiny pops. That lets you know immediately to turn the stove off, turn off the heat, move the pot to the side, let your seed and your nuts cool. And when they're at room temperature, you're all set. You're ready to start making this. Next, what I used in mine today, and you can always just multiply to make a bigger batch, of course, is a 1/4 cup, and I actually put a little bit more than a 1/4 cup of black sesame, 20 whole cashews. If you buy the cashew pieces, just, put them together sort of and get what you think is approximately 20. If you're making this to use as a dip, because this is an amazing dip, you want to add more cashews so that you get a thicker consistency. So instead of using 20 cashews to make this dressing sauce, you would use 30 to 35. And what you would do is put in like the first 30, and then as you blend it, see if you want it to be a little bit thicker or not. And if it gets too thick, thin it out by adding a little bit of water. Next, you will have 2 tablespoons of avocado oil or olive oil. Those are the very best oils to use in this recipe. I am today using avocado oil. It's right there. But like I said, olive oil is great as well. Of course, the better quality, the better flavor you're going to have. I am also going to use a half tablespoon of sesame oil. Now, I'm only using half a tablespoon because the flavor of the sesame oil is definitely a kicker. So if you don't want to use additional sesame, don't use a sesame oil. You don't need to use anything to replace it either. Like I said, it's just an extra enhancement because we love the flavor so much. And also don't use too much sesame oil because it has a very strong flavor. Ground ginger is what you see in the jar back there. I made that ginger myself. I ground it myself, simply dehydrated the ginger, and then I pulverized it into a powder. And I am using 1 tablespoon of that. But if you are buying ginger from the store, it will not have as strong of a flavor. So instead of using 1 tablespoon, you will want to use 1 tablespoon and half a teaspoon. And that's just to compensate for, obviously, making sure you're getting enough flavor in this. Next, I have my lemon juice. I will be using 2 tablespoons of that. I have water in here so that I can thin out my beautiful, yummy Black Magic Tahini food sauce to a consistency that I like. So obviously you will add more or less to meet the consistency that you like. And I would say start a little thicker because it's always easier to thin it out. Next, I am using, I'm going to use granulated garlic in this. And the reason I'm using it is because it mixes so easily. There's no science, no magic to it. But you can use fresh garlic cloves. And I almost did for this recipe, but I honestly just didn't feel like mincing it up and going through that whole thing with the knife and the salt and the this and the that. So I'm using granulated garlic, 2 tablespoons, but you can use half a clove of garlic to get the same punch. The only thing is your garlic has to be super finely minced, and it needs to be a creamy consistency when you're done with it before you add it to this recipe. And the reason for that is no one wants to get like a chunk of like wild, we always call it wild, but wild raw garlic, you know, as they're like enjoying their salad. They're like, ooh, what's that? And also salt. So salt is optional, and I'm using half a tablespoon. And the other thing that you probably want to be aware of is when you're using your lemon juice, I know some people like, oh, I'm going to use half a lemon or whatever. If you use fresh lemon, then yes, use half a lemon. If you're using this specialized lemon juice that we use, it comes from Italy. It's very concentrated, very strong, and you don't want to overdo it because the whole idea is you just don't want one ingredient to drown out the flavor of all the other ingredients. And as I stated before, this is just a reminder. I don't know if I said this before actually, but you can store this in the refrigerator for up to 3 weeks. 2 weeks, the best. 3 weeks, it's definitely still going to be really good. 4 weeks, you know, and you always have to shake this before you use it. It does settle. So when you look at it in the refrigerator, you might be like, oh my God, it's totally settled. Is it good? I see different layers. That just means the water separated from everything else. And all you have to do is shake it up and use it as you would normally do. Any salad dressing really should be shaken before used, or food sauce as we like to call it. So without further ado, let's get going putting together our Black Magic Tahini food and salad dressing sauce. And it's so easy, you guys. You're going to simply take your seed and nut blend, and I actually am going to use my spice grinder, but if you have some sort of food grinder, whatever will do a really good job of grinding this up into an almost powdery consistency. It won't exactly turn into a powder, but it should start to clump together a little bit. And I will do this off camera because it will be loud if I don't. So after you've ground everything up, it should come out to this consistency. And you can even see a little shininess right there from the oil that's already in the nuts and the seed. So this is exactly what you're looking for. You can grind it up a little bit more if you want to, but honestly, it's not going to make as much of a difference because we will be putting this into our Ninja and grinding and blending everything together so it'll get that extra like zhuzh, if you will. So you don't have to, you just want to make sure it looks like this. So I've made this a million times, so you know me, I'm not going to use my measuring spoons, but I do have them right here because someone's like, do you even have measuring spoons? Like, that's the way it is. When you grow up cooking all the time, you eventually get to, which I never thought was a real thing. I saw my mother do it, my grandmother do it, and I was like, really? Do you really cook and you don't measure? And it's like when you've done something so many times and it's a tradition or whatever, a regular dish, meal, or side or whatever you make, you do learn how to do this just by feel, by touch, by whatever, by eye is a big thing. So what we're going to do now is just add the rest of our ingredients. In here, I have the nut blend and the seed blend and the water. So that's why it looks watery. The water is in there. And I am going to add my lemon juice. So we have our lemon juice in there, and remember, and I'll just go over the measurements again, that's 2 tablespoons. And also I am going to add my avocado oil, and that's 2 tablespoons. And if you want to, I mean, I have done this with a little bit less avocado oil. The only thing is if you want it a little bit richer, that's why you're adding the oil. You don't honestly necessarily have to add the oil if you sort of want to concentrate on almost a gastrique or vinaigrette maybe type consistency and flavor. So the oil just adds a little bit of unctuousness to it. And we have our beautiful ground ginger, which I already have measured out in this bowl. And I also have salt and the garlic. I'll just dump all of that in there. Next, I'm going to add my little, what I call it, a little shot. But like I said, it's half a tablespoon of sesame oil. This is what I call a little shot. And next, honey. So honey is one of those items that you can use an alternative for. You do need some sweetness. So in your household, if you don't have honey, this is a large substitute, which I normally don't use myself. I used it once and it worked out fine. You can use some dark brown sugar. Now the thing with dark brown sugar is it adds a little bit of a molasses hit in the back. So if you do use it, just use like half a tablespoon, and see if you think you need just a tad, like a pinch or two more. Honey, I use a tablespoon of honey. And this is you can use any type of honey, so I'm not even going to get into what type this is, but I use a variety of honeys, and this just happens to be one of them, and it works out really well. So everything that we need is now in here. Our next thing is to blend this together. So you can blend this to a consistency that you like. I like mine really well blended. So I'm going to blend this for a while, and then I will be back with two, and honestly, when I come back, it'll be done. It'll be finished. So after blending for about a minute and a half, we have this smooth, yummy, unctuous, rich, beautiful Black Magic tahini salad and food dressing sauce. And you will simply just pour it over your salad, and it adds this beautiful color to it as well. And as I told you before, you can also just dip it. This is thinner, but if I wanted it as an actual dip, so delicious. If you want it as a thicker dip, just add a little bit more cashew to it. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I'm telling you, the recipe is amazing. If you have a dinner party, or let's say it's the holidays or your birthday or whatever you're celebrating, throw this sauce on them. Or it's also a salad dressing. And they will ask you for the recipe. What is that? It's so different. It's so good. There's so much familiarity in it, but they won't be able to put their finger on everything about it. And like I said, it adds color to your food, which adds nutrients, vitamins, and other things that are really, really good for you. So, and also think about those healthy oils that are in this as well. So thank you guys for tuning in again to the Velvet Lounge Life. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, as well as click that thumbs up. And I am going to go enjoy this. I might even throw a couple anchovies on it just for giggles and ha-has. But thank you guys for tuning in. Be well. Remember that your health is your wealth, and without your health, you have absolutely nothing. Take care.